So we are live now on YouTube. Welcome everyone. I'm very happy to be here with Sevim today. Please correct if I'm pronouncing your name in the right way. Sevim, I'm very happy to have you here with us. Thank you for your time. I know you might be very busy in working the European Commission in the beginning of the year, kickoffs, meetings, and a lot of things going on. So I'm very grateful that you're here tonight with us to share both your experience as a former Blue Book trainee and also your experience as a policy officer in the Commission nowadays. So please, the floor is yours. I would like you to introduce a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit of who you are and how you end up making this career choice for yourself. Thank you.
Sure. Hi, Analice. Also good to see you. And hi, everyone else who's checking in tonight. I'm Dutch-German. I was born in the Netherlands. I grew up in Germany. Went back to the Netherlands for my engineering studies. I graduated in mechanical engineering, and then for my master's, I specialized in energy. So you can say I'm an energy engineer and specialize in that field. So after that, but we're going to dive into that later during the session, I joined the Commission as a Blue Book trainee, really liked it and continued afterwards as a policy officer. So right now I work in the energy and climate policy field, and I'm really looking forward to tell you more about it in a bit, about my experiences, but also some tips and tricks on how we can get more of you on board.
Thank you, Sevim. If you could tell us why you became interested in working for an European Union or the European Commission. Is that something that you, as a child, as an European, a child being upbringing here in Europe, it was something that you saw on TV and then you thought about one day I'm going to do that, or maybe you had someone in your family that used to be a diplomat. How the union showed up in your professional career?
Very good question. Also a bit funny because none of what you said applies to me in that case. So I'm the third generation in Europe. My family comes originally from Turkey. My grandpa back in the days came as an immigrant back when the workers' flow was happening from Turkey to the Netherlands/Germany. So we were established in the Netherlands in that case. And to be fair, Europe was very close to me, like from the lifestyle, but very far away from me when it comes to the institutions. So especially during my studies and throughout also today, I still get the question a lot, like, like you're an engineer, what are you doing in the institutions? And, you know, how come the policy making isn't that like what other people should do? And that's one of the most eye-opening things that I can tell to everyone, because one part is the European Commission or the institutions in general is more than policymakers. It's specialists in specific fields like health, like IT, who are then developing policies in that field and giving their expert opinion. Obviously, you need to have some kind of, you need to gain the skills of how to create policies, etc. But I just want to open up like the eye and the perspective for the sake of diversity, that more people should be involved, such as engineers, such as IT specialists, such as health administration students, etc. So therefore, a big call to all of you to, if you're still doubting whether this is something for you, to give your opinion and apply. But I went through the same process myself. I mean, I've been during my bachelor's, if you would have told me, Analice, about like the European institutions, or like, hey, the European Union published about this, I would be like, I don't care. And I really realized like, this isn't. So the reason why I applied was twofold. One, I'm very passionate about the energy transition. That's the reason why I specialized in energy systems. And the question I was asking myself was, okay, I really want to contribute to the transition to a greener and cleaner future. So where can I serve society in the most impactful way? Politics is obviously like a very big independent. So from that perspective, the commission came on my table. It's the executive part, very data-driven part of this policy creation political process, let me say. So that intrigued me. And then on the other hand, the more I got to know about the European institutions, which again was by chance because a friend of mine was mentioning it, that the Blue Book Traineeship is happening. I was like, okay, like what is this all about? But I realized how unbelievable actually the European project is when it comes to how many different stakeholders are contributing to this entire process, different nations with different cultures, with different agendas, how they all manage to agree for a policy to be implemented on EU-wide level. That is just insane. If you think about when you want to go to your holidays with your friends and, if you're 5 friends, just alone deciding on the date, on the location, on the Airbnb is always like such a big discussion. And then imagine that happening on EU scale when it comes to like real impactful things, when we're talking about health, IT, about very sensitive topics as well. That's just extremely intriguing to me, and I'm very happy to be able to contribute to that. Very long answer to your question, but
no, it's great, and I completely agree with you. Sevim, your image is like frozen. I don't know if you want to turn off your camera and then turn on again, but I could perfectly hear you. It's just that it got stopped. Yeah, now you're back. No, but I completely agree with you. I completely agree with you. I mean, the European institutions are something very new for me, as we discussed when we met in Brussels a few months ago. And thank you again for making time to meet me in person when I was visiting the capital of Europe for the first time. But I can see a lot of similarities with the UN, which is an international or intergovernmental organization that I have worked myself, and I'm working right now as a part-time independent consultant. But it also fascinates me the fact that different countries or member states sit on the table to discuss global issues, very complex issues, and they still manage to get things done. So people, they are from the outside, that they don't really understand how an international organization, an international bureaucracy works. It's very easy to criticize. But what I say is, just like you said, like planning a trip with a couple of friends, or a condominium meeting when you have to discuss something about refurbishment of a building. Very like trivial, simple things in life can take so much time when a group of people a little bit different from each other, even if they live on the same street and they've known each other for years, they can have a hard time to agree. So imagine people coming from different backgrounds, different languages, culture, religions, and having to sit down and discuss very complex issues, not like where we are staying tonight or where we are going to eat or which movie we are going to watch. I've been with my husband for 7 years, and sometimes we can't agree which movie on Netflix we are going to watch. So I loved your example, and it's perfect. It's very concrete for you who's listening to us and sometimes thinks that the UN is very slow or the European Union is very slow and things never happen. It takes too much blah, 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 too much talk. But that's democracy, guys. We have to listen to everyone, and it takes time because we have to be accountable. Everything has to be documented. Everything has to be discussed. It's not just like someone that comes up with an idea and, let's do it, right? But you have actually already answered one of my questions here about the background. So thank you for that. So we can also start to break this myth about being a student of international relations or political science, the only suitable profile to join those organizations. You are an example yourself, and it's very good to hear that the people with different backgrounds can join the EU. But when it comes to the Blue Book Traineeship, is there any specific profile that the Commission is looking for? We discussed a bit yesterday that there is a percentage of, I don't know if it's 5 or 10% of the positions that are open for non-EU applicants or candidates. Is there anything you'd like to tell us about the traineeship?
Sure. So first of all, there's this eligibility question, which is actually very simple in itself. So in order to apply for the Blue Book Traineeship, you need to have a 3 years university degree and need to speak one of the official EU languages, so like institution languages, which is either English, German, or French, and additionally another EU language. So in my case, for example, just to give an idea, my EU institutions language would be German, and my additional EU language would be English in this case, or vice versa. So these are the 2 languages that I can provide for sure. The more languages you speak, the better, with the certification, of course. So you need to document anything that you put down there in the application. So it's really, really extremely strict on that. I know so many people who applied and didn't get through the next selection procedure when the documents were being checked on because they couldn't provide the specific certification or documentation for one of their experiences or languages. So please be wary of that. And the third requirement is that you haven't worked for the EU institutions before. So this for the technical thing. So if you give it like a check to these 3 things, you should be good to go pretty much. I mean, one thing that you get let me say extra points for, because this entire application process is based on a scoring system. You get points for specific things, like for example providing more languages. But rare studies, once again, we talked about it a couple of minutes ago, but rare studies actually receive an extra point. So especially if you come from a background which is non-conventional, so outside of the EU policy law backgrounds, you basically have a higher chance of getting in quotation marks. But you can also check my guide. I put down together like all the posts that I prepared so far on this topic when it comes to eligibility, a checklist, general tips and tricks on how to make the best and like put the nudge on your application. And you can check that out if you check my profile on Instagram. So I share a couple of tips and tricks over there once in a while. So that might be useful for you as well.
Thank you. Yeah, that's one thing that I would like to advise you who's watching us and feel comfortable with English. She is also a creator or a content creator, which is very ambitious for someone who works full time in the European Commission. And I love your posts. I love the design behind it. Do you do it yourself or you get some help?
I do actually make it all myself. I'm now getting some help for it as well. So I'm really happy to know that there's more support. But I have to give a credit to my partner. He's my how do you call it, editor-in-chief or social media manager or whatever. He's always checking over all my posts and making sure there are no errors and mistakes and all is objective and informative. So grateful about that. So let me say it's a small personal voluntary team that really just supports me. But indeed, I mean, it's a project that I do in the during lunch breaks in the evenings or on the weekends, etc. But so far it's been a bunch of fun. I mean, I share mainly topics. I share mainly about topics related to energy and climate. So if you're interested in that, you're more than welcome to join the community.
It's so important. It's so important, Sevim, because I'm from the late 80s, And being from Brazil, I always there was also always this lack of information about those institutions, right? The UN, the European Union, that is like something that I've never been even presented at school or at university as a possible employer. And it was the same for the United Nations. Of course, we studied the role of those institutions, but no one never told us how to apply, how to write a motivation letter or a CV. So it's so important now that thanks to the internet, some people are really going out there and helping others. Younger people there are lost and they don't know how to apply. They don't know how to present themselves. They don't even know that this exists. So thank you for that. You're really making changes in people's life, even if you sometimes think, it's just an Instagram, but it does make a change and it really helps people and inspire them. But then since we are talking a little bit about CV and motivation letters, I think I'll jump to this question, Sevim, if you would have any special tips, like very practical tips about how people present themselves, because it can be very overwhelming. You have very little space and you wanted to make the best out of it, but you don't want to sound too snobbish or like, oh, too much. What would be your advice? Like where to focus, how to use the verbs, anything, please share with us.
So indeed, the motivation is one of the key things, and I cannot put it close to your heart enough and highlight it enough. You have to imagine we receive around 15,000 applications, of which around 800, 900 applications are being taken forward and get the position. So, and then on top of that, as you said, you have only around 500 words in order to put down your motivation. So really think, one, why do you want to do it? What kind of asset do you provide to the institutions or that specific field that you're applying for? And also really think carefully of why you want it. So is it really like, do you really want to invest the time into the application and into this traineeship? Really be clear about why you actually want it and what you can bring to the table as well, of course. And what I can really put close to your heart there is think about why you stand out. I mean, every one of us has a story to tell, right? Every one of us has like feelings, and it's like it is. Yeah, I would love to hear stories. You know, after all, we're all attracted to that, and after all, we're all like going through something that sparks inspiration, motivation, and really go deep in yourself and try to put that down. I got the comment myself where the people looking over my application were saying like, yeah, your motivation letter was really nice. And I thought while putting it down, I was like, like, is it a bit too much? But I was like, no, this is me and this is what I feel. And I'm just going to put it the way I feel about it. And so that's what I can definitely recommend you. On a more practical side, there are a couple of tips that I can put close to your heart, and that is one, really think about which department you would like to work for. I mean, the European institution is huge. The Commission in particular as well, we're around 30,000 people, a bunch of around 60 departments. So really think about, okay, where can I provide the most value and what do I find most interesting? Think about your skills. What kind of skills do I have? What kind of skills do I want to learn? And put these things in your motivation letter. So what you can do is you can go over the overview of the departments. If you Google European Commission departments, you'll get an entire overview of that. See what sparks your interest. Look on their websites, look at their Twitter, look what the priorities, what are they talking about at the moment. And what can really help you is to use their words, like see what their priorities are and try to respond to that. Like, how can you help them reach their goal and how can they help you reach your goal? So try to put that a little bit in your motivation letter and think about that. And then last but not least, it was about, I think I just forgot about it. It was really useful tip, but I'll share it later. I have a very good tip. Check the checklist that I posted on as well, because all the things that I'm saying right now are also like nicely put together there. That might be very useful. I mean, if there's a language barrier, you can always translate the things, because as I said, these are a little bit more like little insights into how to go about things than what's written on the application website. So okay, I'll keep it at that. I think there were like a bunch of things that you can take away from there to make your application stand out.
Great, awesome tips. And again, this can be replicated to the UN institutions as well. Because just so you know, Sevim, I think we also discussed that my public, they are from the beginning very interested in the UN, but then I want to expand as a creator and a career mentor, and I also want to bring other institutions. So that's why I keep referring to the UN. So people are applying for both organizations or interested in those both worlds can really relate. But what you said is so true, because when people come to me, my dream is to work for the United Nations. I'm like, okay, the UN system is composed of more than 30 institutions. You have UNESCO, you have UNICEF. Where exactly? I don't know. I just want to go to New York and work for the UN. So these kind of people, the institutions, they are so tired of this kind of lost people. They just think, I don't know, Princess Diana helping someone in sub-Saharan Africa, and they are completely lost. They just want to do it, but they don't know anything about the organization. So please don't be this cliche kind of candidate. Do your homework, go to the website, go to Instagram accounts. You can go to the Instagram of follow the commission or the parliament. You can go to the Instagram account of UNICEF or UNESCO and really try to understand what they're doing, their mandate, their goals for 2022, and use this in your favor and see how your profile can support the organization, because that's why you will be paying for. You are not being paid to fulfill your dreams, you're being paid to contribute to the organization. So thank you so much for raising awareness to this fact. And one question that I have to you, because those kind of positions are sometimes so far from most people that people get very curious. If you could tell us, like, what's a typical day like for you? What's your routine? So we will understand what you do when you are at work.
Sure. I mean, right now I'm working in energy policy, but I'm also really happy to tell about my time when I was working in the climate action department. So right now my work is very legal. We basically check whether, like, first of all, I'm talking about energy policy in the electricity and gas market. So what my team is doing a lot next to policy creation, like, for example, the gas regulation or called directive, we also, of course, checking whether these EU countries are complying with EU law. So what a lot of the work is entailing is talking to stakeholders. Is it companies who are complaining, for example, is like, oh, this country doesn't comply with XYZ EU law, then we follow up and eventually follow up with an infringement procedure. So this is really like a legal side of things, but obviously also that needs to happen. Then, because we're talking about the Green Deal, because we're talking about the energy transition, we, of course, are in a process of changing our system towards where we can host more clean and green energies. And that, of course, requires changes in the system. So when we're talking about the electricity market, there are specific reforms that countries need to implement in order to be able to host more more green and clean energy sources, from renewable energy sources, etc. So in order to get these steps done, they're getting support from us. Is it like subsidies that they receive, but they also need to follow up on their progress. So we're in touch a lot with the ministries and different stakeholders who are sending us reports or updates on a yearly basis, for example, saying, okay, this and this reforms we managed to implement, this and this we did not because of XYZ reason, and this is where we would need help. So this is a lot like also where ministries from different countries work together, like because of lessons learned. We're going through very similar experiences, while every member state, of course, has a different systems and etc. Especially you can imagine with the rising electricity and gas prices, which is a huge topic at the moment. We're dealing with the response on a member state level. Okay, how can we help every and each EU country in order to manage this? That's where we provide a lot of support to the ministries and stakeholders, etc. but also managing public consultations. So one thing about the European institutions and the European Union, and I think that's one of the beauties as well, is that every policy that we create, or every policy proposal in the European Commission's perspective that we create, needs to undergo a public consultation. What does that mean? So we write the proposal from our side, from the Commission side, we put that on the website, and then stakeholders can comment on that proposal and give feedback and comments, experiences, etc., which then helps us to fine-tune these proposals before it goes out to the other institutions, the Council and the Parliament, to vote upon it. But that public consultation procedure, so where we get the public feedback, of course, needs to be managed as well. That means going over hundreds of comments, tens of documents where can be 5 pages or 20 sometimes, where we're looking over, it's okay, which comment is useful, which comment, and then it's being discussed. So that's the entire procedure that needs to be managed of. So that's from my current responsibilities perspective, just to give you a little bit more of an idea of what it can look like. So this translates into meetings, into writing reports, into having these contact points with the ministries, etc., checking on us. So that's about that. But when I was working in the Climate Action Department, it was a totally different set of responsibilities and tasks. So there I was working on a clean technology fund, the innovation fund. And it was more co-designing and co-creating this fund and seeing, okay, how do we set this program up while managing information sessions. So then we were like a little bit more public and, hosting like, okay, this is how it works, this is how you apply. So basically what we're doing now. So then for the innovation fund scale for smaller and bigger companies, to support them in clean projects. So if you had like an innovative, clean, green energy technology project, then we would be basically funding. But that also goes into managing expert groups who are judging upon these projects or who are evaluating these project proposals, but also into making like a general analysis. Okay, what kind of technologies apply? So we're looking over these project proposals, making a general analysis, managing the expert groups, etc., communicating to the applicants and all these type of things. So two very different. What I'm trying to say is the institutions are extremely big. As we already mentioned multiple times, there are various types of tasks. Some are more legal, others are more project-based, and there's so many things that you can do. So I'm sure no matter what your background is, you'll definitely find something that you'll have a lot of fun doing.
Well, to me, it sounds super exciting, and I love to know that you work with innovation. I also did it from the private sector perspective, and it's very creative work also, like to co-create and come up with the solutions for challenges. I had very good memories from the time I was doing that. But while you were telling us the task or your daily routine, I was just trying to transform them to what kind of skills are needed to do those different positions. And of course, it depends a lot, as you said, if we're more on the law side or more project management. But I think there are some skills there are cross sectors, or that are important regardless of which director or which, as you say, DGs. I think it's the directive. What I forgot now. How would I say DGs? What is the what
Director General, which is a fancy word for department.
For different departments, exactly. And I think the skills are like writing skills, because you do write a lot of reports, and just like the UN.
Sure.
So the ability also to understand and summarize very complex information and maybe transform it to a more easy to digest language. Analytical skills, I would also say. And from the soft skills, I could also realize that it's a lot about communication, even if you are not a communicator, right? Because you do have a social skills. You do have to talk to different stakeholders and try to find consensus and listen and make sense of all this information. I don't know if you would bring up any other skills that you think that are very important for people who want to work in the EU institutions.
So especially from a trainee perspective, I would definitely put proactive attitude in there as well. So show that you're like, because you have to imagine these policy officers can be really caught up in their work. They're extremely busy. So you really need to, try to think along together with them, try to like find a hook and show also your interest. So proactive is one of the skills that I would really put on the list as well. Open-mindedness and adaptability, flexibility. So I think that's self-explanatory, given all the different kinds of tasks that we need to be involved in. And just once again, I mean, it's been the theme of the session, but diversity. And what I'm talking about is from the background perspective of your studies, but also ethnicity. Europe is multicultural, and therefore also diversity plays a really, really big role. And therefore, if you're from minority groups or whatever, you can have a huge impact when you also can put in your perspective into the discussions. So that's not a skill, but just like a shout out, pretty much more. But yeah, so those are the two things at least that I would add: proactivity and open-mindedness, flexibility.
Great, thank you. I think I forgot this question, but it's a very important one, considering my audience, that they're pretty young. Are there any other entry-level jobs for the EU institutions beside the Blue Book traineeship that you would recommend people to apply?
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, any of the European institutions does offer a traineeship. So we're talking about the council, we're talking about the parliament. Is it walking along with an MEP or a member of European Parliament? So that's also something that you can do also as a non-EU citizen. I know, for example, a Ukrainian girl who was working in the team of a German member of European Parliament, just because she had this specialty and special focus that was extremely valuable to her team and her portfolio. But there's also the committee of the regions. There are also a lot of lobbying companies where you can do an internship. So there are a variety of opportunities when looking at Brussels specifically. And there's an overview, and I wish we can somehow share that later on in a way where you basically have a nice overview in an Instagram post slide where you see all these different things that I mentioned just now, what the differences are and what the different requirements are, when the application dates are, etc. So I'll try to share that later on my account. Then I guess that would be the best way. If you want to see these things, then you can have a look. And what I would like to highlight is I got this question on my account as well, like, hey, I'm about to finish my master. Do you think it's smart like to already apply? And my answer would be definitely yes. So I applied while I was in the middle of my master's as well. So I applied in January 2019 and started in October 2020. Oh, sorry, January 2020, and then I started in October 2020. So exactly like this, I was in the middle of my master studies, about to round off like in half a year, and you can still apply. So what's required is that you have these that you have your master studies, or like the 3 years basically completed by the time you start your traineeship. That's one. And as I said, I mean, for me, this was my very first international career experience as well. And there's no limit of the amount of times that you can apply for the Blue Book traineeship. Maybe that's also good to highlight. I know people who applied 6 times and then got in the 7th time just because his like, let me say, CV or like the work experiences were increasing, and he was creating more value. But as I said, it can go twofold. So you can apply as many times as you want, but I can definitely recommend applying after your master's as well.
Perfect, thank you. And there's also no age limit, right? So even if you are
Nope.
over 30 or 35, you can apply, which is great, because some of the junior programs or entry-level programs from other organizations, they do set a limit to 30, 32, or max 35. And then some people who are career changers or didn't have the opportunity to learn a language or do a master's when they were younger, they had to work, save money, and then do their studies. They end up missing out a lot of opportunities. So it's good to know and to highlight that if you are over 30 like me, you're never too old. You still can apply, and I'm sure you can have a great experience, right, Sevim?
Yes, totally. And it's really, really good that you're mentioning this, Analice, because also many of my peer trainees back then were just, older. I mean, the age range is really, 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 really broad. And that's also one of the beauties of being part of this Blue Book traineeship. You meet so many people from different stages of life, and it's just a beautiful experience.
Thank you. And what would be the next step, or at least how it was with you? Because the traineeship lasts 5 months, more or less, 5-6 months, and then not everyone get hired, right? How is the process if someone wants to try a position or fixed term position in the organization? So what are the options for those who want to continue in Brussels?
So I'm not going to go into the technicalities because then it's just going to get very complicated, but there are opportunities for trainees to be taken over. Is it via and that basically is that the team or your boss is offering you to continue. You can also always request hey, a couple of months before, hey, it's coming to an end. What would you say? Is there a need for full-time employee, let me say, and there are different types of contracts that can make this happen. But there's also specifically a program for young professionals, which helps Blue Book trainees and others to get into this. I don't want to call it a traineeship type of setting, but it's a bit more established young professional walkthrough, many companies also have it. So there are different kinds of opportunities that you can check out, but already the Blue Book traineeship is really being seen as getting your foot in the door into institutions. So that's on the one hand, but also for you to have this 5 months experience to figure out for yourself, is it really something for me? So from that perspective, that's what I can highlight. But that's if you want to stay in the institutions. If you don't want to stay in the institutions, there are a bunch of advocacy and lobbying companies that find a Blue Book traineeship as an experience extremely valuable. I know so many people who had an easier or a good start into the private sector because of that on their experience level. So because of the insights that you gain, of course. So from that perspective, there are multiple opportunities, but having a Blue Book traineeship as an experience is always a good asset for you, also in your future professional career.
Thank you. Yeah, that's what I learned also from Leandro yesterday, a Brazilian fellow who told us, even if you don't get a position straight away in the Commission or in an EU institution, there are plenty of private sector, NGOs, private companies in Brussels. And I've also learned that after Washington, D.C., Brussels is the city where per square meters you have the highest number of both diplomats and lobbyists. So there's a lot of opportunities for sure. And I loved Brussels. Chocolate is great, waffles is great, and it's not very expensive comparing to where I live, Stockholm, where everything is overpriced. Here in the Nordics, I thought the prices were pretty decent and very well connected. You take a train, you are in Amsterdam. I think 2 hours you are in Paris. It's really central. So I really encourage people to move there. And we are approaching the final minutes of our interview, but I would like to ask you if you could recommend some books or people to follow. Well, I already recommend you, and I hope my followers will follow you as well. I'm going to share on stories some of those tips or this post that you have already made, so they can check it out. But I don't know if you would, if I'm someone who's going to prepare for the Blue Book Traineeship, is there any books or any other creators that you would recommend? What would be your tips for inspiration and preparation?
So in particular, just to get an idea of what's going on and being able to keep track of the most recent decisions or whatever, I have a couple of Instagram accounts that I can definitely close to your heart, which is, I'm just mentioning them now, but we can also share them later on your and mine account, which is EU4U, the Young European Leadership, and EU and You. So these are free accounts that make amazing briefings and very up-to-date topics of most recent decisions and all these type of things. So that's actually also a very useful resource for me. If you're more the reader, so these are infographics. These are nice short infographics. You get like a nice summary. If you're more into the reading part of things, there are a couple of newsletters as well. So this one goes a little bit more into detail, but it's the Politico EU Brussels Playbook newsletter. That's something that I check every morning very quickly to see, okay, what's happening in Europe as in general, basically, but also in Brussels. That's one of the most useful resources. On books, I mean, I have two Dutch books that I could definitely recommend, but it's from Geert Mak. One of them is being translated as well. So if you Google Geert Mak and Europe, you'll find the books. It gives a very nice and critical review of the history of Europe, basically, which can be interesting for you to read, but this is more for your personal pleasure, I would say. But it's not too heavy on history. It's more like interviews. It's a very nice work, really, in the language, but also the way it's been brought to you as a reader. So that's what I can definitely recommend to you guys.
Oh my God, I love it. Yes, please send it to me on WhatsApp if you can, because I do have a Telegram group. I'm mainly talking Portuguese there, but you are welcome to join. And I have over 600 people just on that group. So I really want to write down and put everything, because I know my followers love it. Every time I share a book or a tip of a film or documentary, I have a very high engagement. So thank you for that. I'm sure they're going to follow your tips. This is a one-woman show, so I don't have an assistant, so I'm doing like everything. But now I just managed to get to see the comments from people watching us. So I have Gabriella. She's saying she was my mentee. She bought one of my courses and was in my mentoring. She's very engaged. She said, "Thank you so much for your time." Well, we were having some problems on the internet, but she wants to know if there's any advice to write the bullet points for the 5 experience inside the portal. So I think she means the CV part, not really the motivation letter. If you would have any tips or how to write those bullet points.
That's a very good question, actually, and that what I'm going to say doesn't only apply for the CV part, but also the computer skills part, which often people neglect, and also the communication skills part. There's a specific section where you can put your communication skills. So there, really try to highlight what was your biggest achievement? What did you contribute in that project that might be useful for your future employee, the commission in that case? So really think about, because we tend to put these things very, very quickly, but really think from the reader's perspective, okay, like this department is going to read my application. How can I show them that this experience is relevant to them? So really try to think from that perspective and put down the bullet points that way. This also goes into education, by the way. You have a comment section on the education part. Highlight your most amazing project where you achieved X, Y, Z. So we can really use these sections to show how you benefit the institutions, and then can use the motivation part to purely only dive into your application, in your motivation and your passion part. So that's the biggest recommendation that I can give on that section.
Thank you. We have a very nice comment from Laura. You were great, Sevim. I have been following you on Instagram for quite some time, and your content is super informative and helpful. Thank you. Oh, you have a
Thank
fan
you.
here.
Yeah.
And then we have Guia Dragon. He has two questions. He would like you to develop a bit more about the life-work balance as a trainee, and also if you have any tips for finding accommodation in Brussels. Thank you for your question. Very, very interesting needs.
When it comes to work-life balance, I mean, it goes twofold, and it also depends on the team that you're in. Sometimes you can have difficulties like finding the hook as a trainee. Other teams are really like, they have a bunch of things for you to do immediately. So the recommendation that I can give there is, one, know your boundaries. I mean, you are a trainee, obviously, you want to impress people, but I think especially in the day that we live today, knowing your boundaries and being able to communicate that is one of the biggest skills that you can have. It really shows your maturity. It really shows that you're aware of your time and are aware of your skills and energy levels as well. So if you really notice like, okay, this is going over my boundaries, I think communication is one of the key things, again, which then shows your maturity and the level of skills that you can deal with these type of situations. Because no matter in where you're going to go, time management, overworking is always going to be an issue. And I don't think it's in anymore to do over hours or like have this presence culture or whatever. If you can show that, I think that's if you can communicate about that, openly in a very respectful way, everyone is going to understand it. So that's what I can give you as a tip on your first question. The second one is about finding a place in Brussels. So it's not as expensive as in many other cities. You can expect as a trainee to spend around, I found a place for 450, but 500, 550 is like the usual range where you're going to find a really nice flat with other people to live in. For example, we found a house and we put down like an ad on the Facebook group. So there are several Facebook groups which you should definitely go into. Is it on finding housing, but also dedicated Facebook groups on EU traineeships, EU Blue Book traineeship, EU Blue Book traineeship for October 2022. So they're really dedicated groups like that where you can find a bunch of information and a bunch of people reply to as well. So as I said, for example, we put an ad up there and like, hey, we're looking for other Blue Book trainees. Is anyone interested in joining this house? And we were basically like an entire house with Blue Book trainees, which was extremely nice, especially during COVID times, to make the best out of it as well. And actually the Facebook groups are the biggest asset, but be wary of crazy landlords and landladies. I had the experience myself. So you can ask about it if someone else has previous experience in that house when you're on Facebook, for example. And a second, there are also scammers around, so be wary about that. Don't transfer any deposits or something like that if you don't have if you didn't have a call with them properly, for example, or whatever. So that are a couple of tips that I can give about accommodation.
Great, thank you. Thank you for the tips about the Facebook groups. I'm not using Facebook anymore. I'm not a Facebook user, but those groups are really useful, even if you're not very active on the social media itself. I'm sure it can help a lot to get in contact, especially if you don't have anyone that you know or that you have connected before in Brussels. There is one more question from Carlos. Hi, thanks for this very nice talk. Are there any departments where architects are demanded? Thank you.
Ooh, interesting one. All right. So obviously I cannot say it's like, oh, it's this colleague or this team, but For example, the one project that came into my mind immediately is the Bauhaus project, where multiple teams and multiple departments are being involved in, and it's like one of the flagship projects of the EU. And I can totally imagine that architects can play a really big role. That's one thing. Then urban development is a really big part, and smart cities. So I'm just saying stuff out the head of my head, but I hope this might be useful for you, Colin, I think it was, to at least research about it and have some keywords in mind to find departments. But urban design, smart cities, if these are topics that interest you, I can imagine you would be very valuable in contributing to these type of projects as well. So DG Regio, I can imagine, can be a really big one. And yeah, as I said, any department connected to the Bauhaus project, but you can find way more information on that when you go EU Bauhaus on the website to see where you can dock in there.
Perfect, thank you. And then we came to our final question. You were still too young to have regrets, but if you could do all over again, would you choose the same path for yourself? If not, what would you have changed?
So I think I wouldn't be able to put my path down. I think if I would start from zero and if another opportunity came across, I would probably take that one. So for me, I've never had like a specific goal. For me, it was always more driven of interest, like, and then opportunities that came across my way. So as I said, if one of my friends wouldn't have mentioned the Blue Book Traineeship, I would have never applied to it. So it was always like opportunities like these that came across my way, and I can totally recommend you the same. So if you see something coming across, if you have this amazing conversation with a person and it inspires you, like, follow up on that and see that like apparently it sparks something in you. And especially if there are opportunities like these of 5 months traineeships, there's never going to be a regret because it's a very low stake involvement, especially after your bachelor's or master's, to do a program like this. No, very much no. I mean, the thing is, like, I wanted to study medicine, and I'm so happy that it didn't work out. And look at what I'm doing now, something totally different than medicine, also totally different than engineering, just because nothing was really planned. It's, as I said, just opportunities coming across. So I guess that's very difficult to influence that.
Great, thank you so much, Sevim. And I really agree with you. And it's so important to have friends and to have a community on the way. And that's why I'm going to use the final minutes to do a bit of marketing as well, because I'm about to open my second mastermind group. And this time is going to be in English. The first one last time was more towards Brazilian audience or Portuguese speaking. But I'm, expanding my business, and I really want to have my fellow Brazilians to talk English in a more intimate or group setting, so that they can feel more comfortable. So if you're listening to us, if you don't follow me, go to my Instagram, and then in the bio you can have a form for you to just fill in with your information. What do you expect? And then I can contact you when the group starts. But my ambition is really to put these people together so they can share their questions, their challenges, and really help each other, which I think it's very important. It's something that I wish I knew when I was a bit younger, the importance of networking, the importance of having a group of people that really want the same thing as you, so you can help each other. So that's my ambition with my mastermind group. I'll send you the link. So if you also know someone that would like to be my mentee and come with me for 3 months, we are meeting every other Thursday online, and I'm very excited to have this group in English. It's going to be the first one that I organize in English. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the great work that you do both in the commission and on Instagram. I'm going to keep sending you followers, people that are going to Brussels, because I really think the work you do on Instagram is very, very important. So I don't know if you want to send any final messages, but from my side, I just have a big thank you. Muito obrigada for your participation.
Thank you, Analice. It was a pleasure. But before saying also, like, the thank word, big congratulations to your new stream of mentorship. I think it can be really, really, really useful and beneficial not only for your English audience, but also the Brazilian audience, just to say like one word to that. Use this as an opportunity to speak English. I can imagine, I know that also from myself, like if you don't have opportunities to speak like English, it can be really difficult. So especially if you get a mentorship and then like let me say language training on top of it as well, it's a beautiful thing that you can develop yourself personally, but also professionally. That will only add a huge asset to you, but also on your CV. So this sounds like a great opportunity, Analice, and thanks for offering that, and also making sharing your experiences and your skills with more people, and enabling more people to follow their passion. I think this is a beautiful, beautiful work that you're doing and having a lot of impact on so many people's lives. So I'm very happy to hear that you're expanding your business on that perspective. Congratulations and good luck.
Thank you so much, dear. Thank you. And I hope you come to Stockholm so we can see each other very soon. Have you been here? Have you been to Stockholm?
No, not yet, but I'm very happy to ping you once I'm over there, because I would love to check it out. I mean, it's a beautiful country, a lot of things to see, a lot of nature to see. So I'm very happy to visit you there, and also check out your house and the renovations and all these type of things.
Wonderful. Du är välkommen.
Yeah. So thanks for having me on. It was a pleasure talking to you. I mean, I didn't even know that we talked for an hour now. It's always supposed to be short, Oh gosh. But I hope it was useful. It was a pleasure for me, that for sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone. Obrigada. Thank you for you who has been here tonight with us, or afternoon or morning, depending where you are. And tomorrow we have a NATO program officer who comes to talk to me in Portuguese. She's half Brazilian, half Italian. So it's going to be in Portuguese, but if you know anyone who speaks the language and like to know a bit more, NATO is also in Brussels, so it's going to be very exciting.
Very, very interesting.